The Broncos have made a trade. Baron Browning is going to the Arizona Cardinals for a 2025 sixth-round draft pick. We're going to break down this trade. I'll give you my thoughts and analysis on that. But right after they made that trade, they also followed it up by extending the current starting outside linebacker, Jonathon Cooper, to a 4-year contract extension. So we're going to look over those numbers and also give you my thoughts and analysis on that. But let's start with the Baron Browning trade, and then we'll get to his former teammate, Jonathon Cooper. I wish it was more than a 6th-round draft pick, but overall, I'm okay with it. I mean, let's just look at the facts here. The Broncos got a draft pick for a player on an expiring deal who has had a long history of injuries and was a backup on this team. Beggars can't be choosers. I mean, you're kind of happy to get what you got there, even if it's just a 6th-round draft pick, to get something for a player who is not going to return after this season, and that's more evident now that they extended Jonathon Cooper, who was a backup to Nick Bonito, who took Browning's starting spot after he was on injured reserve for 4 weeks, and like I said, wasn't coming back this year, was a backup and on an expiring deal. Yeah, to me, that all signals probably a good deal for the Broncos overall. So, more on this in just a moment here, but make sure to subscribe to the channel. We're the first ones getting a video out to you guys on YouTube. So join the #1, at least in my heart, Broncos YouTube channel out there. Hit that sub button down below. Help us reach 28,000 subscribers. Now, for everyone keeping score at home, here is the updated look at the Broncos 2025 draft picks. They have their 1st, 2nd, 3rd, 4th, no 5th. That belongs to Miami for the Bradley Chubb trade. Then they have their own 6th, and now they have the Eagles 6th from the Albert O trade and a Cardinals 6th-round draft pick. So 3 6th-round picks, which I don't expect to see Denver use all of those picks in the draft. I would speculate that they're going to try and use those picks to maybe move up in the draft, try and get a player later down the road at some point, but unlikely Denver just stays pat at all with all 3 6th-round draft picks they currently have. So, sure, you always wish to get a little bit more, but let's just face the facts here. Browning was widely unavailable the last couple of years, and that's a bummer because when he was available, he was a really good pass rusher on this team. I mean, go back to last season. He misses the beginning of the year, but he comes in for the last 2/3 of the season. He puts up 4.5 sacks in 10 games. Yeah, those aren't eye-popping numbers, but if you stretch that out to a full 17-game season, we're looking at a guy who can get you 8 to 9 sacks, and that's pretty valuable for just a pass rush committee. And the season before that, 5 sacks in 14 games in his first year as an outside linebacker, so a good amount of growth from his rookie year when he was an inside linebacker coming out of Ohio State. But unfortunately, the story for Browning will be a lack of availability. He missed 4 games this year on IR with a foot injury. Bonito filled in very nicely for him. He put up 6 sacks in 6 straight games. Cooper's been balling out opposite of Bonito, and now Browning is playing less than half the snaps on an expiring deal. Yeah, like I said earlier, it's kind of a no-brainer to me for the Broncos to trade him. Now, of course, you'd always like to get a little bit more than what you get, but I mean that's just kind of fandom being fandom being blinded by reality. And the reality is in the NFL, you don't get as much as you think you will for players, especially on an expiring contract. So how would you grade the trade? Let me know in the comment section below. I'm going to give you my grade in just a moment, but scroll on down and let me know. I'd give it a C. It's average. You got a 6th-round draft pick for someone who, like I said before, was a backup on an expiring deal who had a long history of injuries. I would not expect too much more. I would hope for more, but if we're being realistic with one another, a 6th-round pick is probably about fair for Baron Browning. So for me, it's an average trade. It's a C. I wish Browning the best in Arizona. I always liked him as a player. I felt like there was more to him than what the stats showed, but unfortunately for him, it was not going to happen in Denver with the emergence of Nick Bonito, with the extension, which we'll look at in a moment with Jonathon Cooper, and 2 young guys coming up the ranks in Drew Sanders, who is hopefully coming off the PUP list soon after popping his Achilles in the spring, and rookie Jonah Ellis, who played the same amount of snaps as Baron Browning on Sunday against the Ravens. Yeah, you've got a 4th-year guy getting the same amount of snaps as a rookie. I think the writing's on the wall for the 4th-year guy. Now, before we look at that Jonathon Cooper contract extension, quick shout out to our sponsor, Game Time. If you want to go see a Broncos game, an Avs game, or a Nuggets game, or so many of the other awesome events that the city of Denver hosts, then visit Game Time today because they have so many great deals for Broncos country. They have this thing called Game Time Picks, which filters out the fluff to show you only incredible deals on great seats. That way you don't have to spend 30 to 60 minutes searching for the best tickets when the best value is over at Game Time. One thing I love about Game Time is they're all in pricing option. Toggling this feature shows the total upfront cost with no surprise fees at checkout. So take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code CHATSPORTS for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code CHAT Sports for $20 off. I put all that information in the comments and description of today's video. Download Game Time today. What time is it? Game time. So just as we were beginning to film the Baron Browning trade video, it kind of got comboed because the Broncos extended Jonathon Cooper. So let's break this down. It's a 4-year, $60 million extension. That's an average of $15 million a year. Amongst edge rushers, I mean, that is pennies on the dollar. It is very, very affordable and a very good deal for Denver as long as Cooper just continues to play at the level he has played at over the last season and a half, and they only guarantee $33 million. So it's a good deal for Cooper in my eyes. Sure, he could have bet on himself. He could have played out the rest of this year. Maybe he gets more money in March because other teams can kind of drive up the price on Denver and create a little bit of a bidding war. But you never know in the NFL. You could get injured the very next game, and all of a sudden that guaranteed money goes down the drain. But look at what Cooper has done over the last, 26 games. 8.5 sacks last year. This year, 5.5 sacks through 9 games. That's second best on the team. Denver has really found something in another 2021 draft pick. They extended Quinn Miners. They extended Patrick Surtain. Now they extend Jonathon Cooper. So that draft class is shaping up to be one of the best ones in recent memory under George Paton in his first draft class as the Broncos GM. So I'm a fan of this contract extension. If things don't go well, if Cooper were to fall off a cliff, which, hey, in the moment they always sound great, but go back in time a few years ago, it was right around now when they extended Courtland Sutton and Tim Patrick, and I don't know if those deals really lived up to what Denver thought they were getting out of those two guys. One due to injuries, the other one due to turbulent quarterback play for the most part. But the Broncos linebacker room, I think, is in a good spot. Inside linebacker is a question mark, but Cody Barton's done a really nice job of filling in, which is somewhat, I want to say ironic, but kind of the same path that Alex Singleton had, which is came to Denver, wasn't this big name free agent signing, was kind of a special teamer. And then once he got the opportunity to really shine, he ran with it. And Barton's done the same thing while Singleton's been on injured reserve. But if we really key in here on the two starting outside linebackers, Cooper and Benito have both had really strong first halves of the season, so I'm excited to see what those two guys can do for the second half of the year. And then you've got rookie Jonah Ellis, who I'm hopeful will have a big role in the second half of the year now that Browning is kind of out of the way in terms of him getting more snaps. So I'm very excited about Ellis. I was super pumped up about this draft pick. He had a great preseason. Of course, rookies in the regular season come crashing down to earth or really come crashing down the depth chart. But I think we're going to get more of Ellis, which is exciting. And then Drew Sanders, who has been out for the entire year so far after tearing his Achilles working out in April. His target return timeline was always right around November. So here we are, early November, and this opens up a roster spot for maybe Drew Sanders to get elevated off the PUP list, open up his practice window, and get him going because we really didn't get to see too much of him last year in year one, and he was an early day 2 draft pick for Denver coming out of Arkansas. Now, with the NFL trade deadline tomorrow at 2 p.m. Mountain Time, 4 p.m. Eastern, there are some more names to watch for if Denver is open to dealing a couple of guys. I don't think this qualifies them as like sellers in the traditional sense. It's just getting picks for players who don't have a large role on this team. You got 2 backup quarterbacks. No starting Dallas just lost Dak Prescott, but they like rush. So I don't think they're going to be making a move for a quarterback, but pretty much all the starters have been healthy so far this year for the most part, at least compared to previous years. So I don't think anyone's going to be calling desperate for Stidham or Wilson. Greg Dulcich, if anyone wants him, have at it. I mean, he's a healthy scratch for the Broncos, so you're probably not going to get anything more than a 7th-round draft pick. And then Damari Mathis is kind of in the same boat. If anyone wants him, have at it. Now, as for the Broncos potentially being buyers, one name that just continues to come up over and over and over again is Cleveland Browns tight end David Njoku. Now, the Browns got their butts kicked by the Chargers, so at 2-7, they are definitely all ears when it comes to trade offers, I'd imagine. Now, Njoku's a key piece of that locker room, so I think it would take a big draft pick to pry Njoku out of Cleveland, and I don't think the Broncos should make that big of an offer. I mean, my guess is Cleveland would want a 3rd-round draft pick because they're not looking to trade Njoku, and I don't think Denver is a David Njoku away from winning 1 to 2 playoff games. And I know that's not a very popular opinion, and that's kind of a bummer thing to say right now in a rain cloud, but that's the God's honest truth right there. That's what I feel. And I don't think Njoku for a 3rd might be good for Cleveland, but for Denver for the rest of this year, I'm not crazy about. So I'd rather just hold on to your draft pick and use it on a younger player in the upcoming NFL draft. But what trade do you feel like is coming next? Get in the comment section below and let me know. I'm thinking maybe Greg Dulcich. I mean, there is some talent there. It's just not happening in Denver right now. So maybe a team offers a 2026 7th-round draft pick for Dulcich, like, say, the Commanders, because Zach Ertz is their starting tight end. He's on the older side of things. They want to build around Jaden Daniels. That could make some sense for both sides. Before we sign off, I do want to show some love to the Blue and Orange Club. Slap Yourself, I Don't Give a Buck, John E., Anthony, Bobby, Rick. Thank you guys so much for being such loyal supporters of the channel. Next time we have a watch party, a $100 super chat. We'll add you to the club, and we'll give you shout-outs all season long. That's going to do it for us on today's episode. Baron Browning, best of luck in the desert. Jonathon Cooper, dinner's on you tonight.